Welcome, family, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Indijeroo Podcast. As you know, we are doing our mindful living series, and I thought that it was important to bring on someone that could talk to us as well about being mindful of our finances. So I want to welcome you, Miss Rhainy Clayton-Cole. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on, and real life is something.
Yes, it really is. So could you introduce yourself to the people, give us a little bit of information about your background and who you are?
Yes, so I'm Rhainy Clayton-Cole, and I like to call myself, I'd say, a how money works coach, right? I teach people how money works. And yeah, knew it was a career change for me, and that's how I got here. And a mompreneur, as we see.
Absolutely.
And things are good. So thank you so much for having me on, and we're super excited to be with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So just to give you a little bit of background with this mindful living series, it's really just about how being mindful and being present in your life in many different areas can impact you for the better and for the positive. And a lot of times the conversation is had around emotions, it's had around relationships or even parenting. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is to have that conversation around finances and how being mindful as we are cultivating our financial habits in our life could benefit us. So one of the things I wanted to begin to ask you about is your personal journey with finances. Um, when did you begin to be intentional about cultivating your relationship with money and finances?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd have to say when I first got introduced to my firm, I came as a client. I had just gotten married, and I'm like, okay, well, now that we've, now that we have gotten married and conjoined our lives, like what do we do from here, right? Like what's next, and how do we go about doing that? And so we sat down with an advisor, and I realized that we had an unconscious spending habit of about, I don't know, $490 a month. And I'm like, yeah,
That's a subconscious habit.
yeah. And when I was able to, my advisor and my then mentor kind of put in perspective, and he said, what are you spending your money on? Or when, what, just getting the idea of the habit, right? Like why are you spending this kind of money, or when are you spending it, or what's going through your mind when you're spending that money? And I'm like, well, I don't know, it's every Thursday when I'm just sick of cooking, right? And I'm ordering pizzas, and that's what I'm doing. And so I'm like, well, okay, how do we stop that habit? And so what that equated to, though, was we do what's called plugging the hole, right? And at first I had to dig, though, before I stopped spending that money, and say, okay, why am I spending that money, right? Oh, it's just $5. It's just every Thursday. It's just this. And just like any other relationship, if you say it's just, right, like, how long would our partner stick around if we said, oh, that's just my husband, that's just my wife, right? It doesn't stick around. And so I think money does the same, right? Like money's not just going to be around because you treat it that way. And so I think that's where it started. But I'll tell you, it's an ongoing process. I have not arrived. I'm still learning. I'm still, at a point where every day I'm learning, and every day is a new journey. So it's just it's an ongoing process.
Okay. So you said something, and I don't want to assume what it means. So I just want to ask you, what exactly is plugging the hole?
Yeah. So a lot of times people are leaking, they're hemorrhaging money that they have no idea where it's from. And it's, you know, they might have an idea of their overall expenses, but when it comes to, you know, when it comes to, oh, you know, I thought I had the money, but I really don't. And then we look and we say, wait a minute, you're spending $500 a month on eating out. You're spending, you know, you're going 3-4 times a week, you know. So plugging that hole is stopping that hemorrhaging from the top. And meaning,
Okay.
so when I sit down with my clients, we kind of run them through the process, but we pay ourselves first, right? That's our number one, our first asset and important thing is us and our health and our ability to work.
Mhm. Okay. So you talked about your inspiration basically being to have a sure footing, embarking on this life together with your husband, setting a very strong foundation for your now expanded family.
Yeah.
And it's so that point that you just made about like it's only
Yep.
when we talk about mindfulness and like just being aware and being present. I'm sure if someone asked you, you would say, I don't know, it's probably $150 I spend a month, just because you're like, oh, $5 here, here, there. Okay, it's probably about 150. But then it turned out to be so much more. And how when you really get present with what's actually going on and you're combing through, oh, I am actually, that Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or
Yep.
Panera or these little meals here and there are really adding up. And so I think even on my own personal journey, it's just because I just wasn't taking the time to like actually observe what was happening. And so how important it is to just take the time and kind of chart it. Now, when I was younger, I used to see my mom writing down mileage like everywhere. She's always been an entrepreneur, so she's always been writing off her mileage for taxes and things like that. But she kept receipts for everything,
Yeah.
and it was obnoxious as a child. Like I'd get into the car, and there would be like receipts. And
Yeah.
eventually she would take them out like in bulk and file them away or do whatever. I wasn't really a part of that process, but I just remember receipts being everywhere. And so now on my financial journey, obviously we have technology where we don't necessarily have to keep the receipt. We can scan it into an app or things like that. But I'm curious, what was your family's financial story, and how did that impact even the habits that you developed or moved away from? Because for me, I was like, I don't ever want to be the receipt collector because I didn't understand how important that was. And so I was kind of like, whatever. I'll just check my account, I'll see the number, and I'll operate according to the number I see.
Yeah.
So what's your family money story, and how did that impact you before you decided to be like super conscious about it, and then how has it affected you now?
Yeah, that's what my money story was is like my dad was an entrepreneur and always been a serial entrepreneur, but money was just cash, right? And we always had it and we always had lots of it. Like he always had a green sock of money that would have a couple $1,000s in it, or you know, what have you. Um and I just always knew it was there, but we didn't really own anything. So it was more like it wasn't business, it was a hustle, right? And there's a big difference, and people get that confused, right? There's different platforms and types of businesses, right? And I don't just mean like by what you do by a service, but whether you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or self-employed, right? So anyway, back to what you're saying. So his was more so like he worked in his business, on his business, cash was always abundant, but we didn't own anything, right? So we always rented. We always had like, we never had anything less than 3 little putt cars, right? And they
Mhm.
ran and whatever. And as a kid, it's fun picking, you know, what car to drive with dad for the day. But you know, we didn't own a home, and nobody was really educated. And so my idea of money was just like, it'll still come around, but we never dreamed of of big things, or we never talked about big things, or I never saw big goals get knocked out, right? And I dreamt as a little kid, but you know, in terms of money, I just knew that it was always there, but I wasn't taught about credit and about, you know, what's a good decision, what's a bad decision, and how to save your money, how to invest your money. Like, you know, I knew you went to the bank and I knew that that's where you deposited money, but that was pretty much the size of money. And, but I also think that that idea of money really manifested in other ways of my life, right? Like over buying groceries as I got older. That's right. That's how we showed somebody we loved them, was over cooking, over making. But then the opposite of that was we did a lot of wasting. We didn't have a huge, you know, family like that. So yeah, I would say that was my kind of foundation of money.
Yeah. So with the changes that you have in place, obviously you have come to a point where you are helping others tremendously. You are helping people save money, plan for the future, protect themselves and protect their families. So you've obviously gotten to a point on your financial journey where you are serving your community and making sure that not just your family, but others are also taken care of. And so when you look at your beautiful daughter sitting there next to you, what are some things that you are intentional and hopeful that she will take away from you as you are currently cultivating her money story? What are some of those things that are important to you?
Yeah, thank you. I really feel like I didn't take my financial journey as serious as life or death, because that's really our money stories. The stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell our kids, you know, what we say out loud really is a matter of life or death. And I take it as such. And I say that because, you know, we have I don't want to say it because she might want us to play it, right? But we have a MONEY song that we sing and watch, and it just talks about the numerics of actual money. But you know, I'm really intentional about, you know, what her affirmations are, her I ams, and making sure that I'm saying those things, because children repeat what they hear, right? And we play it on YouTube, and we have a timeout chair that we, you know, we're entrepreneurs, and it's not knocking anybody who's not, because it's not for everybody, but right, but we call it the employee chair, because I want her to understand that you know, it's for some places, thank you, it's for some people, but it's not for her. She doesn't really like to sit down, right, as you see, right? And she's on her own beat of her own drum, right? But it's you know, not, it's just not a place for her, right? And that entrepreneurship is the only way that Nola can do what it is that she wants. And so I hope that that's what I'm pouring into her, but really, really very intentional about money.
So if she decided to, on her journey, become an employee for a period of time to reach some goal of some sort, would that be something that would be acceptable, or are you setting things up so that she has the freedom to choose before that time even comes, and that she will have the liquidity to do that financially? Like, what are your thoughts about that? Because it's like sometimes some parents are like, okay, that's cute, but unless I have a certain level of actual liquid finances to allow my child to live, you know, you think about trust fund babies and all this kind of thing. And some people just cannot relate to that, maybe not even understanding that their children could very well be trust fund babies if they set up a trust for their child.
Exactly.
But just kind of those nuances of choice, right? And so if she said, listen, Mom, you've taught me these principles, and I feel like this is something that will help me reach my goals, what would be some strategies that you would encourage a person to be mindful if they are looking towards becoming an entrepreneur, but maybe using their employee status to get there?
Yeah. Well, to kind of because that's a loaded question, but to kind of unpack it, for me, I'm not attached to the outcome, whether she becomes an entrepreneur or an employee or what have you. But what I want to make sure that I instill in her is your purpose and clarity and your goals, and teaching her how to hone in on those things. Because I think sometimes, and I've been an employee, right? And for a long time. And I feel like that 9-to-5 corporate world doesn't allow the room for you to dream and for you to, for you to, think outside of a box. They tell you when to go and where to go and when to come, and you have to ask for vacation. If the kids are sick, you got to get permission to leave, and all of those things. And so, not that it's bad, but it doesn't cultivate that environment where it puts us in a goal setting status, right? And so for her, I want to make sure that at least she has those tools, right? The entrepreneurial tools, the self-sustaining, the skills that she would need in order to do whatever it is that she chose. And so I think with that, there are accounts and strategies to go about making sure that she has money to do whatever it is that she wants to do, whether that's working, or whether that's entrepreneur, or any of that. It just, I don't want to box her in, because the fact of the matter is we don't own our children. We don't. And it doesn't matter what we want for them, because when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, we can guide them in the direction that we would like them to go, but they're going to make their own choice.
Yeah. So you talked about, as you were speaking before, about the affirmations that you both do, and the importance of making sure that what you're telling yourself is something that will propel you towards your actual goals, like what you're saying in your mind. In your opinion, how closely related, I have my own opinion, but how closely related is mindset and finances?
Oh man, it's everything. How many times have we, or have you experienced this? You buy a car and it's a white car, and it's a white truck, let's say. And you drive everywhere in the city, and now you've seen all the white trucks that there are. You're like, there's my car, and there's my car, and there's my car, and I didn't know that there were so many of these cars, and I don't know if I like that, right? And what that is called, that process is called the reticular activating system, right? And what that does is that brings to your attention, basically what you focus on grows, right? And so, sorry, this is real life for me, you guys. Real life on a Saturday. And so, saying that to say, I feel like what you focus on grows. And if you focus on, oh my God, I'm so broke and I don't know how I'm gonna pay these bills, and oh my God, well, guess what you're going to get? More of the same, right? And kind of how the saying goes and the book goes, right? As a man thinketh. And so whatever you say after I am is who you are. And so I really believe and try to really be intentional about saying, whatever it is, stop using the terms, I'm broke, I'm poor, I can't afford it, I don't have it, right? And replace those things with better things, right? I'm wealthy, I'm figuring it out, it's coming to me, it's on its way, right? I had an old lady tell me I'm in between blessings, right? Those sort of things, to replace those negative things that we say, because that's what comes back. And so it's everything. It's just like anything else, any other relationships that you have, and anything else you want in your life, we need money as a tool. But whatever you say about those things, it expands. So mindset is everything.
So for the person that may not be familiar with affirmations, obviously what you say, or as a man thinketh, is a very basic concept. But I think we all know that just because a concept is basic doesn't mean that it's easily implemented. And so, how has your personal evolution played a role in your relationship to money? Meaning, as you've personally evolved and been able to, right? Because I know sometimes it's easy to compartmentalize, like, oh, because there are people out there that have all the affirmations up on the wall, they have them stuck to their mirror, they have it in the car, but it hasn't connected. Like, they haven't actually personally evolved to the point where there's like actual real belief and a soundness to it. And so then it's not effective. And then they say, oh, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work because of whatever. So, how has your personal evolution helped you on your financial journey?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's been a life changer. It's been a game changer, and what I'll give credit to is definitely my business. We do a ton of business development. We do a ton of personal growth, a ton of personal development, a lot of reading. So I'm so super grateful. I can't even say partial credit. I can only take partial credit for doing my part, because I've been blessed with a business model, and having been introduced to a business that permits for those things, right? To grow financially and to grow in terms of your own personal growth and development, excuse me. But what I will say is, here's some of the tools that I kind of use, and always still try and make sure I make a part of my life. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that the reason why those things don't flourish, I mean, I think it's a couple things. One, if you don't believe it, right, you can't achieve it. You also have to do the legwork. You can't just say it out loud. Like, you have to do work.
Absolutely.
It's you have to, what do they say? Hard work is paid up front and in full. And so you have to do the hard work on yourself. So one thing I would say that I've used are a number of things. One is I started with a lot of YouTubes of personal affirmations. There's one, and I'm not connected to them in any way, but it's called You Are Creators, and there's wonderful affirmations on there, and playing those in the shower and playing those at night. There was one that my husband and I played for, like, I think we're on year like 5 of playing this at night when we go to sleep, to help train the unconscious brain, right? The subconscious mind, because those are where things start to happen, and those where our guards are let down, is doing work on the subconscious level first and foremost. There's also a thing called subliminals, right? And there's some science work behind that, and those are also things that help reprogram the brain. I also do driving in the car. Before I went full-time into being an entrepreneur, I was still working in corporate America. And I don't mean just like working, I mean like working 60, 70 hours a week, right? And my drives were about an hour and a half. And it's hard because you kind of battle in between. And I hope there's people out there that can relate to that, but you battle in between your corporate mind and your employee brain and your entrepreneurial brain, and whether or not you're working in the business yourself, you still wrestle with these things. And so I would drive and be like, oh, I hate this job. And I had to really change that. You pay your bills with a 9 to 5, and you work there. And you work in your business. You work in your business from 6 p.m. to midnight, right? And I would listen to podcasts. I would listen to other entrepreneurs. I'd listen to, Tony Robbins. I would listen to, Ed Milet. I would listen to audio books. So really doing that work and being really conscientious of what you're feeding your brain, right? And limiting your phone calls and and I'm not perfect and I haven't arrived and I'm not where I want to be, but these are definitely tools that help me to start to raise my awareness.
Yeah. No, those are all super useful. I can definitely co-sign on all of that.
Yes.
Making sure that you're, even in birth work, when we talk about the different waves of consciousness and how it's affected. And I just don't think we have enough conversation. And a lot of folks are like, well, I'm making this choice and I'm making that choice. But that's with your conscious mind. There are so many more choices and decisions and actions that are being made subconsciously that are overriding what you think you're going to do. So it doesn't, some of this like, no, I'm definitely going to do it. I'm going to, and it's like, really beginning to have this conversation more, because a lot of those huge shifts that people like yourself and people like myself experience, particularly around finances, trauma, and then, like I said, like huge times like giving birth.
Yeah.
We really have to go to that subconscious place and really address it intentionally. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there's so many things, whether you're talking about binaural beats or different meditations and frequencies, the frequency of the music that you listen to.
Yep.
All of these things matter. And so the podcasts are super helpful. I know in my house, it's like, if I'm cooking, I've got my phone popped up and I'm watching someone's podcast, or I'm listening to something, and same thing in the car. And just like, it sounds like you are making growth a part of every aspect of your life.
Yep.
Because it's like, if you're constantly listening to things that are elevating and teaching you and growing you every day, you don't have time for foolishness.
Yeah.
You don't have time for distractions. Even when you mess up or you get distracted or whatever, it's such a small amount of time.
Yep.
Versus, oh, I'll listen to one podcast in my entire day for an hour.
Yep.
And everything else is mayhem.
Yep.
That doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing I forgot to mention is me personally, I actually wrote down my business plan on a piece of paper and I laminated it, and it's in my shower, and I read it aloud twice a day when I'm in the shower, because it's really important to get clear on your whys. Why are you doing something? What is the purpose? Because when it's all said and done, when you're tired, it's late, things like this happen, right? Like you're doing podcasts and your kids are going nuts, or whatever, working from home, and especially in the times that we live in now, right? We get so inundated with information and inundated with stress and inundated with fear, that we forget why we are doing this. And so, I repeat those things as if they are already done, right? Like, I am blank, blank, blank. And I think it's so important to revisit that daily. It's just like, I think that, sometimes when we go through things, and, you and I were just talking offline about, homeschooling and that sort of thing in this day and age, I think all of us a couple times a day say, what the heck, or we drop a couple of explicatives, right? And in those times, we remember why we're doing it, right? And although some things are forced, I think it's important to remember your whys, remember why you're doing it. Remember, oh, what happened? It says it no longer has time.
It's still going.
Okay. Yeah. So it's important to remember your why, and to remember why you're doing those things. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is sage advice. Yeah. So thank you for joining us today and dropping these gems. And thank you, baby Nola, for your cameo.
Oh gosh, I know. The other thing I would say too, Jackie, that you mentioned a bit earlier that I think is important is that Einstein said that you can't solve a problem from the same mind which created it. And as it pertains to our finances, and what I see with our clients is that sometimes people have dug themselves in debt or something like that, right? And get with a professional, and it should be a free service. There are out there, but get an objective opinion, get an unbiased opinion, get a professional opinion, someone that looks at numbers and can look at it from an
like from a non-emotional
yeah,
space,
exactly, not
unbiased.
exactly
Yeah.
that. Yes, from an unbiased space, and really be able to um, get that help and know your numbers and know what that means and get financially educated. And even if you feel like you're doing well, and you don't need to be sick to get better. So that's
Yeah.
what I would encourage the viewers to do, and moving forward.
I love that. You don't need to be sick to get better.
Yep.
For real. So how can people find you? And if they are looking for support, whether they are sick or not, where can they find you and where can they follow you?
Yeah, thank you. So I have a couple websites, and I'll provide them with you as well. But one of them is howmoneyworks, plural.com/Cole, COLE. I also can help people as long as they're in North America, but you could call me or text me. It's fine. My telephone number is area code 720-384-8569. I think those will be the fastest ways to reach me, or Facebook, Rhainy Clayton-Cole. Nothing fun, but I'd be happy to answer questions or serve wherever I can.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today on Indijeroo Podcast for our Mindful Living series. And I look forward to speaking with all who are watching and all who listen in very soon. And again, thank you so much, Rhainy. Like, you are in full mama mode and you are still here. You are still showing up. And I absolutely appreciate
Sure.
that, because it's real life,
Yes, it is. It really is.
So I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thanks so much for having us.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.